Before we uncover the details of this daring escape, if you enjoy diving into the hidden history of the Cold War and the secret lives that defined an era, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Your support helps us bring these forgotten files to light. To understand why a man at the peak of his physical prime, a national hero destined for gold, would choose to throw his entire life away in a split second, you have to understand where he was forged. The story of Nikolai Volkov begins not in a stadium, but in the closed city of Sverdlovsk 44, deep in the industrial heart of the Urals. It was 1974. Nikolai was 22 years old, and he was not considered a person by the state. He was considered a biological asset. Nikolai was a decathlete. In the Soviet sports machine, decathletes were viewed as the ultimate proof of the new Soviet man: strong, versatile, enduring, and disciplined. His life was a calculated equation of caloric intake, sleep cycles, and training loads. He lived in a dormitory attached to the Zenith Sports Complex, a brutalist concrete structure that smelled perpetually of chalk dust, stale sweat, and bleach. By all accounts, Nikolai was a model citizen. He was quiet, deferential to his coaches, and showed no interest in the political dissent that was quietly simmering in the underground circles of Moscow or Leningrad. He had been scouted at age 12, removed from his parents' home in a rural farming collective, and placed into the state sports academy system. For 10 years, his world had been the 400 meters of the track and the heavy silence of the weight room. But beneath the surface of this disciplined athlete was a mind that was beginning to fracture under the weight of observation. In the Soviet Union during the Brezhnev era, elite athletes were privileged, but that privilege was a cage. They received better rations, they had access to medical care that the average worker could only dream of, and they were given apartments upon winning medals. However, the cost of this comfort was total ownership. Nikolai's primary coach was a man named Boris Ivankov, a former military officer who believed that pain was the only reliable teacher. Ivankov didn't just train Nikolai's body, he dismantled his psychology. He controlled who Nikolai spoke to, what books he read, and when he slept. "The state has invested millions of rubles in your hamstrings," Ivankov would tell him. "Do not think you own them. They belong to the people." It was during the winter of 1975, less than a year before the Montreal Games, that the surveillance on Nikolai tightened. The KGB had a dedicated department, the 5th Directorate, responsible for ideological conformity in the arts and sports. They knew that international competitions were dangerous. They were windows to the West, and every time a Soviet team traveled, the risk of defection or treason against the motherland spiked. Nikolai had never given them a reason to doubt him. Yet, he began to notice a man in a gray wool coat sitting in the stands during his morning practices. The man never took notes. He never cheered. He simply watched. This was the silent pressure that defined Nikolai's existence. He wasn't running toward a finish line anymore. He was running to stay ahead of the suspicion that he might be thinking something unapproved. The irony was that at this stage, Nikolai had no plan to leave. He was just a young man trying to survive the expectations of an empire. But the state, in its paranoia, often created the very enemies it feared. Chapter 2. The Handler. The man in the gray coat was named Vitaly Karpov. In the files later recovered after the dissolution of the USSR, Karpov is listed as a sports attaché, a euphemism for a KGB minder assigned to the national track and field team. Karpov was not a thug. He was an intellectual, a specialist in psychological manipulation. His job was to be the athlete's best friend and their worst nightmare simultaneously. In January 1976, 6 months before the Olympics, Karpov made his formal introduction. It wasn't in an interrogation room, but in the cafeteria of the training center. He sat down across from Nikolai with a tray of food that was slightly better than what the athletes were eating: fresh fruit, a rarity in winter, and real coffee. "You look tight, Nikolai," Karpov said, smiling like a concerned uncle. "Ivankov is pushing you too hard. You need to relax. The motherland needs you loose for Montreal." Nikolai knew who Karpov was instantly. Every athlete knew. They called them the neighbors. When a neighbor sat with you, it was a test. "I am fine, comrade," Nikolai replied, keeping his eyes on his plate. "The training is necessary." Karpov pushed an orange across the table. Take it. Vitamin C. We can't have you getting sick. This was the dynamic. Karpov began to insert himself into every aspect of Nikolai's life. He would show up at the dormitory in the evenings, bringing Western music records, contraband for authorized personnel only, and bottles of Georgian wine. He would ask questions that seemed innocent, but were designed to map Nikolai's internal landscape. "Do you ever wonder what it's like in America?" he would ask casually while the record played. "I hear the athletes there have to pay for their own coaches. Can you imagine? Such a barbaric system, no support." Nikolai learned to answer carefully. He had to appear loyal, but not so fanatically loyal that it looked like a performance. It was a tightrope walk. If he seemed too curious about the West, he would be cut from the team. If he seemed too perfect, they might suspect he was hiding something. What Karpov didn't know was that Nikolai was hiding something. It wasn't a political manifesto or a contact in the CIA. It was a secret relationship. Nikolai had fallen in love with a woman named Elena, a physiotherapist at the clinic who was not cleared for international travel. Relationships between traveling athletes and domestic personnel were discouraged because they created emotional liabilities, or conversely, if the athlete defected, the partner left behind became a hostage. They met in the supply closets and the laundry rooms of the complex. Elena was the one who whispered the dangerous truths to him. She had a brother who had served in the Merchant Marine and had seen the world outside the Iron Curtain. She told Nikolai about supermarkets with aisles full of food, about cities where people didn't lower their voices when they talked about the government. "You're going to Montreal," she whispered to him one night in March. "You're going to see it. I'm going to compete." Nikolai corrected her, terrified the walls were listening. "I'm coming back. Don't come back," she said. The words hung in the air, heavy and terrifying. "If you win gold, they own you forever. If you lose, they discard you. There is no life here, Kolya, only service." Karpov, the handler, sensed a shift in Nikolai's demeanor. He didn't know about Elena yet. Their discretion was absolute. But he smelled the anxiety. He increased the pressure. He began to mention Nikolai's parents back in the village. "I spoke to the local party secretary in your district," Karpov mentioned casually. "Your father's tractor needs parts. I made sure they were delivered. The state takes care of the families of its heroes. As long as they remain heroes." The message was clear. Your performance and your loyalty are the only things keeping your family safe. Chapter 3. The Selection. By May 1976, the tension in the training camp was palpable. The final roster for the Montreal Olympics was being decided. This wasn't just based on athletic metrics. You could be the fastest man in the Soviet Union, but if your file had a red flag, you stayed home. Nikolai was performing at a world-class level. His times in the 100 meters and the hurdles were personal bests. His high jump was clearing heights that would guarantee a medal. But the psychological evaluations were ongoing. One afternoon, Nikolai was summoned to the administrative wing. The room was sterile, adorned only with a portrait of Lenin and a heavy oak desk. Sitting behind it was the team director, and standing in the corner, smoking a cigarette, was Karpov. "Sit," the director said. On the desk was a file. Nikolai recognized his own name on the tab. "There is a concern," Karpov said, his voice smooth. "We found a letter in the mailroom, outgoing, addressed to an address in West Berlin." Nikolai's heart hammered against his ribs. He had never written a letter to West Berlin. "I don't know anyone in Berlin," Nikolai said, his voice steady despite the fear. Karpov picked up the envelope and held it to the light. "We know, it's a forgery. Clumsy, probably a rival athlete trying to get you purged. We have dealt with the saboteur." Nikolai realized it was a test, or perhaps a lie to see if he would crack. "Thank you, comrade," Nikolai said. "However," Karpov continued, stepping out of the shadow, "it makes us think. You are 24. You have no wife, no children, nothing to anchor you here. That makes the committee nervous. A man with nothing to lose is a man who might take risks." "I have my parents," Nikolai said. "I have my duty." Karpov stared at him for a long silence. "Yes, you do. Remember that when you step off the plane in Canada. We will be with you, every step. There will be security officers in the village, in the stands. even in the locker rooms. We are there to protect you, of course, from Western provocateurs. Nikolai was officially named to the team 3 days later, but the victory felt like a sentencing. That night, he met Elena for the last time. She pressed a small piece of paper into his hand. "It's a phone number," she said. "My brother's friend. He lives in Montreal. He is a defector. If you decide to run, call him." "I can't," Nikolai said. "They'll hurt you." "They will hurt me anyway," she said, tears in her eyes. "Eventually, everyone gets hurt. Go. Live for both of us." Nikolai swallowed the paper. He memorized the number, repeating it in his head like a mantra until the numbers lost their meaning and became just a rhythm. He couldn't carry physical evidence. He kissed her goodbye, not knowing that Karpov was watching the building from a parked car across the street. Karpov didn't intervene. He didn't arrest them. He simply noted it in his ledger. A weakness identified was a lever to be pulled later. Chapter 4. The Departure. The flight to Montreal was a surreal experience. The Soviet delegation traveled on a chartered Aeroflot Ilyushin Il-62. The atmosphere on board was strictly controlled. The athletes were separated by sport, and interspersed among them were the assistants. Burly men in ill-fitting suits who clearly had never thrown a javelin or run a sprint in their lives. Nikolai sat by the window, watching the gray landscape of the USSR fade away. Beside him was a shot putter named Igor, a veteran of 2 Olympics. Igor was cynical and wise. "Don't look out the window too long," Igor muttered without moving his lips. "You might get ideas." "I'm just sleeping," Nikolai said. "Listen to me," Igor whispered. "When we get there, they will give us an allowance. 30 Canadian dollars. Buy jeans, buy records, but don't buy the bullshit. They want you to think it's paradise. It's just a different kind of zoo." Igor had survived by playing the game. He won medals, he brought back denim and electronics to sell on the black market in Moscow, and he kept his mouth shut. But Nikolai felt a vibration in his chest that wouldn't stop. Midway through the flight, Karpov walked down the aisle. He stopped at Nikolai's row. "The air is thin up here," Karpov said. "Make sure you drink water. We land in 4 hours. The Canadian press will be at the airport. You are not to speak to them. The team captain will handle all questions. You smile, you wave, you get on the bus. Understood?" "Understood," Nikolai said. "Good. Oh, and Nikolai, that girl from the clinic, Elena, she is being transferred to a facility in Vladivostok. A promotion, very far away. I thought you should know. The threat was subtle but devastating. Vladivostok was a closed port city on the Pacific, thousands of miles from his home. It was a form of exile. Karpov was telling him, "We know. We have her. Behave." Nikolai felt a cold rage settle in his stomach. It was no longer about fear. It was about clarity. They had taken the one thing that made him human. If he went back, he would never see her again anyway. The leverage Karpov thought he was applying actually snapped the last chain holding Nikolai to the system. Chapter 5. Culture shock. Landing in Montreal in July 1976 was like stepping onto another planet. The summer was humid, heavy with the scent of ozone and exhaust. But it was the colors that assaulted Nikolai's senses first. In Sverdlovsk, the world was painted in shades of concrete, rust, and snow. In Montreal, there were billboards in neon reds and electric blues. Cars were painted in vibrant yellows and greens. The clothing of the airport staff, the advertisements for Coca-Cola, the sheer visual noise of capitalism was overwhelming. The Soviet team was ushered through a private customs channel, bypassing the regular lines. But even in that brief walk to the buses, Nikolai saw things that defied his understanding. He saw a newsstand overflowing with magazines, hundreds of them, with glossy covers showing women, cars, political satire. He saw people arguing with police officers, waving their hands, and the police officers simply arguing back rather than arresting them. They were loaded onto buses with blackened windows. The drive to the Olympic Village was a silent procession. The city outside was a blur of motion. "Look at the decay," the political officer at the front of the bus announced on the microphone. "See the homeless? See the trash? This is the reality of the West. Do not be fooled by the neon lights." Nikolai looked. He saw some trash, yes, but he also saw people sitting in cafes, laughing. He saw teenagers holding hands. He saw a freedom of movement that seemed chaotic and terrifyingly beautiful. When they arrived at the Olympic Village, the illusion of freedom vanished. The Soviet dormitory was a fortress within a fortress. The Canadian security was tight, designed to prevent terrorism after the Munich massacre of 1972. But the Soviet security was designed to keep people in. There were checkpoints on every floor. The elevators were monitored. Nikolai's room was shared with 3 other athletes, ensuring no one ever had privacy. Karpov had a room at the end of the hall. He kept his door open. "Welcome to Canada," Igor, the shot putter, said as they threw their bags on the narrow beds. "The beds are soft, the food is free, and the walls have ears." Nikolai lay on his bed that first night, staring at the ceiling. The number Elena had given him was burned into his mind, 5550192. But there were no phones in the rooms. The only phones were in the lobby, right next to the security desk where the KGB agents sat in shifts, logging every call. To escape, Nikolai realized, he couldn't just run. He had to vanish in plain sight. And he had to do it while preparing for the most grueling athletic competition in the world. Chapter 6. The village life in the Olympic Village was a bizarre dichotomy. On the track and in the cafeteria, the nations mingled. Nikolai stood in line for breakfast next to Americans, East Germans, Brazilians, and Australians. The international zone was the only place where the handlers relaxed their grip slightly, as they couldn't risk causing a diplomatic incident by tackling an athlete in front of the world's media. Here, the trade in pins and merchandise was fierce. It was a currency of goodwill. Nikolai exchanged a Soviet flag pin with an American sprinter for a pack of chewing gum. "Good luck, man," the American said, clapping him on the shoulder. The casual contact shocked Nikolai. In his world, touching a foreigner was akin to touching a diseased animal. "Thank you," Nikolai managed in broken English. Karpov was never far. He hovered at the edge of the cafeteria, watching the interactions. He was looking for the infection, the moment a Soviet athlete lingered too long, laughed too hard, or accepted a piece of paper. One afternoon, 3 days before his event, Nikolai spotted a payphone near the exit of the international zone. It was exposed, public, but for a brief window, around 2 p.m., the guards changed shifts. There was a gap of perhaps 90 seconds where the desk was manned by a Canadian volunteer, not a Soviet minder. Nikolai began to time his movements. He would go to the arcade area at 1:50 p.m. He would buy a soda. He would walk toward the exit. On the second day of observing this pattern, he made his move. He approached the phone. His hands were shaking so badly he almost dropped the coin, a Canadian quarter he had found on the ground. He slotted it in and dialed the number Elena had given him. It rang once, twice, 3 times. "Hello?" A male voice, suspicious. Russian accent, but faint. "I am a friend of Elena," Nikolai whispered, turning his back to the room. From the clinic. Silence on the other end. Then, "You are the runner?" "Decathlete. I am in the village. Listen to me carefully," the voice said. "We cannot come to you. The village is too secure. You have to get out. You have to get to the city." "I can't. The guards." "The marathon," the voice said. "Or the walk, when the events go into the streets. That is your chance. I am not a marathoner. I am in the stadium. Then you must create chaos," the voice said. "Go to the St. Catherine Street entrance of the metro. It is near the stadium. We will have a blue car waiting. Every day at 4 p.m. A blue Ford. Do you understand?" "Nikolai!" The sharp voice behind him made him freeze. He slammed the phone down. He turned to see Karpov standing 10 feet away. "Who were you calling?" Karpov asked. His eyes were cold, devoid of the uncle-like warmth he usually feigned. "My mother," Nikolai lied. "I wanted to see if the lines worked." Karpov stepped closer, invading his personal space. "The lines work, but you do not have permission to use them. And your mother does not have a telephone in her village, Nikolai." Nikolai's blood ran cold. He had forgotten. I was calling the operator to ask how to send a telegram," Nikolai stammered, pivoting. Karpov stared at him, dissecting the lie. Then he smiled, a thin, predatory expression. Focus on the gold, Nikolai. If you win gold, maybe we install a phone for your mother. If you don't, well, she won't need one. Chapter 7. The competition begins. The decathlon is a 2-day torture chamber. 10 events designed to break the human body. The 100 meters, long jump, shot put, high jump, and 400 meters on the first day. The 110-meter hurdles, discus, pole vault, javelin, and 1,500 meters on the second. Day 1 of the competition dawned with a torrential downpour. The stadium was a cauldron of gray rain and bright tracksuits. Nikolai was in a trance. The fear of Karpov, the plan with the blue car, the image of Elena, it all had to be shoved into a box in his mind. If he failed on the track, he would be pulled from the competition and sent home immediately. To escape, he had to keep competing. He had to stay in the game until the very last moment. He ran the 100 meters in 10.7 seconds, a solid start. In the long jump, he soared, landing a personal best. He was fueled by a desperate, frantic energy. He wasn't competing for a medal. He was competing for the right to remain in Canada for another 24 hours. By the end of day 1, Nikolai was in second place, trailing only the American favorite Bruce Jenner. Note: historically accurate rival, though the story is fictionalized. The Soviet coaches were ecstatic. Ivankov slapped his back in the locker room. "You are a machine!" Ivankov roared. "Tomorrow you crush the American!" Karpov was there too, holding a towel. "Excellent work, Nikolai. The ambassador is watching. Do not disappoint him tomorrow." That night, Nikolai couldn't sleep. His muscles screamed, but his mind was racing. The blue car. Every day at 4 p.m. The decathlon ended the next day in the evening. The 1,500 meters, the final event, would be around 6 p.m. He would miss the window. He had to get out before the final event. But how? If he left mid-competition, the alarm would be raised instantly. The stadium was sealed. Security was everywhere. He realized the only way out was the medical tunnel. He had seen it on the diagrams in the athlete's guide. It was a subterranean passage used to transport injured athletes from the field to the ambulances waiting outside the perimeter. He needed an injury. A fake injury? No. They would check. It had to look real. Chapter 8. The calculated fall day 2. The sun came out, baking the humidity into the air. Nikolai moved through the hurdles and the discus mechanically. He was exhausted. The mental strain of the double life was taking a heavier toll than the physical exertion. He looked up at the stands. He saw the block of Soviet officials. Karpov was there, binoculars pressed to his eyes. He wasn't watching the event. He was watching Nikolai's face. The pole vault. This was it. It was a dangerous event. A failure here could be catastrophic. Nikolai cleared his opening heights easily. The bar was raised. He prepared for his run-up. He gripped the fiberglass pole, feeling the texture of the tape. He looked at the landing pit. I have to hurt myself, he thought, but not enough to cripple me, just enough to be carried out. He began his sprint. He planted the pole. He launched himself into the air. As he crested the bar, instead of pushing off cleanly, he twisted his body awkwardly. He cleared the bar, but he came down hard, landing on the edge of the mat with his ankle rolling violently beneath him. A sharp snap echoed in his ears. Pain, white and hot, shot up his leg. It wasn't an act. He had actually sprained it, perhaps tore a ligament. He screamed. It was a scream of genuine agony, but also of performance. He clutched his ankle, writhing on the mat. Medics rushed onto the field. Ivankov was running from the sidelines, shouting, "My ankle!" Nikolai yelled in Russian. "It's broken!" The Canadian medics loaded him onto a stretcher. Ivankov tried to follow, but a race official held him back. "Only medical personnel." "I am his coach," Ivankov screamed. "He goes to the triage center first," the official insisted. Nikolai was carried into the bowels of the stadium, down the concrete ramp into the cool darkness of the tunnel. He looked back and saw Karpov standing at the railing of the stands, his face a mask of suspicion. Karpov spoke into a walkie-talkie. Nikolai knew he had minutes. Once he reached the medical room, the Soviet team doctor would arrive. He would take custody of Nikolai. He would be sedated and put on a plane that night. Chapter 9. The tunnel. The stretcher was wheeled into a triage room filled with the smell of antiseptic. A Canadian doctor began to cut the tape off Nikolai's shoe. "It looks like a bad sprain, son," the doctor said in English. "We need to x-ray." "Toilet?" Nikolai gasped, sitting up. "Please, sick." "You need to stay down." "Please." Nikolai made a gagging motion. "Vomit." The nurse pointed to a door down the hall. "Right there. Can you hop?" "Yes." Nikolai slid off the table. His left ankle was throbbing with a heartbeat of its own. He put his weight on his right leg and hopped, using the wall for support. "I'll help you," the nurse said. "No, please, privacy." He hobbled into the bathroom and locked the door. He immediately turned on the tap to mask any noise. He looked at the small window high on the wall. It was narrow, frosted glass. He climbed onto the toilet tank. He pushed the window. It was stuck with paint. He slammed the heel of his good hand against the frame. It cracked open. He could hear voices outside the bathroom door. Angry voices. Russian voices. Karpov had arrived. "Open the door!" Karpov's voice was calm, which made it terrifying. "Nikolai, come out. We have a doctor here." Nikolai pulled himself up. The pain in his ankle was blinding, making black spots dance in his vision. He squeezed his shoulders through the frame. He was a large man, a decathlete, broad-shouldered. He scraped his skin raw, tearing his jersey. He tumbled out onto the pavement of a loading dock. He was outside the stadium, but still inside the perimeter fence. He heard the bathroom door being kicked in behind him. "He's gone!" Karpov yelled. "Perimeter! Seal the perimeter!" Nikolai scrambled to his feet. He couldn't run. He could only limp sprint, a grotesque loping gait. He saw a laundry van idling near the gate. The driver was checking a clipboard at the rear. Nikolai didn't think. He dove into the back of the van, burying himself under a pile of dirty towels that smelled of sweat and wintergreen oil. Chapter 10. The city. The van moved. Nikolai lay in the darkness, clutching his swelling ankle. The vibration of the engine was the only thing keeping him from passing out. He checked his watch. 3:45 p.m. The van stopped after 10 minutes. The back doors opened. Nikolai held his breath. "Hey, what are you doing in there?" It was the driver, a young Quebecois man with long hair. He stared at Nikolai, a man in a torn Soviet uniform, sweating and terrified. "Please," Nikolai said in English. "Help, police." "No, no police." The driver looked at the uniform. He looked at Nikolai's face. The Olympics were the talk of the town. Everyone knew about the Soviets. "You defecting, man?" the driver asked, his eyes going wide. "Yes, please, Metro." The driver grinned. "Right on, I got you." He slammed the doors shut. The van peeled out. 20 minutes later, the van slowed. "St. Catherine Street," the driver yelled through the partition. "Go, go." Nikolai rolled out of the van onto the sidewalk. The rush hour crowd swerved around him. He was a spectacle, a giant man in a red CCCP jersey, limping, wild-eyed. He scanned the street. 4:10 p.m. Was the blue car still there? He saw a blue Ford sedan parked near a fire hydrant. 2 men were sitting inside, smoking nervously. Nikolai lunged toward it, but as he did, a black sedan screeched to a halt across the intersection. 2 men in suits jumped out. Not Canadians. Soviet security. They had tracked the laundry van? Or maybe they had blanketed the area. "Nikolai!" one of them shouted. It wasn't Karpov. It was one of the muscle men. He reached into his jacket. Nikolai didn't wait. He threw himself at the blue Ford. "Open! Open!" The driver of the Ford unlocked the door. Nikolai fell into the back seat. "Go!" Nikolai screamed. The Ford tires smoked as they merged into traffic. A gunshot popped, a small sound in the noise of the city. The rear window shattered. Chapter 11. The Pursuit. The chase through Montreal wasn't a high-speed movie scene. It was a desperate navigation of traffic jams. The blue Ford wove through the gridlock. "Keep your head down," the driver yelled. "I am Alexei, Elena's friend." "They are behind us?" Nikolai asked, pressing his face into the vinyl seat, smelling the shattered glass. "I don't see them," Alexei said. "But they have radios. They will call the Canadian police and claim you kidnapped someone, or that you are a terrorist. We have to get you to the safe house." "No safe house." Nikolai said, wincing as the car hit a pothole. "They will find it. Take me to the police. Now, the police might hand you back," Alexei argued. "It's happened before. Diplomatic pressure." "Take me to the press," Nikolai said. The idea came to him suddenly. "Take me to the television station. If the world saw him, if he was on camera, they couldn't make him disappear. They couldn't drug him and put him on a plane if millions of people were watching." "CBC Studios," Alexei nodded. "It's downtown." They drove toward the distinctive tower of the Maison de Radio Canada. As they pulled up to the curb, the black sedan appeared in the rearview mirror, aggressive, swerving into the oncoming lane to cut them off. "Get out!" Alexei shouted. "Run!" Nikolai's ankle was the size of a grapefruit. He couldn't run. He opened the door and fell onto the sidewalk. The Soviet agents were out of their car, moving fast. They weren't drawing weapons now. Too many witnesses. They were coming to grab him, to drag him back. "He is sick!" the lead agent shouted to the gathering crowd. "He is our athlete. He is mentally unstable. We are helping him." People hesitated. The agents grabbed Nikolai's arms. Their grip was like iron. "Help!" Nikolai roared, his voice cracking. "I am defecting! Political asylum! Help me!" He swung his good arm, striking one agent in the jaw. It was a desperate, flailing blow. The agent stumbled. A group of construction workers nearby stopped. A security guard from the TV station ran out. "Let him go!" the guard shouted. "Diplomatic immunity!" the agent hissed, trying to drag Nikolai toward the black car. Nikolai grabbed a parking meter, wrapping his arms around it. "I am not going! I am not going!" The standoff lasted 30 seconds, but it felt like an hour. Then the sirens wailed. Not the KGB. The Montreal Police. Chapter 12. The interview. The police separated the men. The Soviet agents flashed their credentials, furious, shouting threats about international incidents. But the Canadian officers saw a terrified man clinging to a parking meter, begging for protection. They took Nikolai not to the station, but into the lobby of the CBC building, which was considered a neutral public space while they sorted it out. A camera crew, sensing the story of the decade, was already setting up lights. Nikolai sat on a leather sofa in the lobby, surrounded by Mounties. A medic was icing his ankle. An hour later, a representative from the Canadian Immigration Department arrived. "Mr. Volkov," the man said gently, "if you step out those doors with those men, you go back to the Soviet Union. If you stay here and sign this paper, you are asking for the protection of the Crown. But you can never go back. Do you understand?" Nikolai looked at the paper. He thought of the dormitory. He thought of Ivankov shouting. He thought of the gray man, Karpov, and the orange he had pushed across the table. And then he thought of Elena. "Live for both of us." He took the pen. His hand was steady. He signed Nikolai Volkov. The aftermath was messy. The Soviet Union threatened to boycott the closing ceremonies. They accused Canada of kidnapping and brainwashing their athlete. They stripped Nikolai of his records, erased his name from the history books in the USSR, and harassed his parents for years. Nikolai never saw his parents again. He never saw Elena again. He learned years later that she had married a factory manager in Vladivostok and had 3 children. He settled in Montreal. He learned French and English. He became a coach at a local university. He lived a quiet life. He never won an Olympic gold medal. The injury to his ankle was permanent. He never competed professionally again. But every morning, Nikolai Volkov would wake up in his small apartment, make a cup of coffee, walk to his balcony, and look out at the city. He would watch the people moving freely below, and he would take a deep breath. It wasn't the breath of a champion. It was the breath of a free man. And to him, that was worth more than all the gold in the world. If you enjoyed this story of high stakes and hard choices, please hit the like button and share it. There are thousands of stories like Nikolai's buried in the archives of the Cold War. Until next time.